Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NFL Week 5 episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. The road to 272 bets continues. I do not have a recap of Week 4 yet as I'm recording this. We're 11 minutes and 40 seconds left in Titans against Dolphins, and 2-minute warning here between the Lions and the Seahawks. Recording a little early tonight, earlier than I usually do, because I got to wake up early. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to go play Bethpage Black, host of next year's Ryder Cup. So that's going to be a fun day tomorrow, but that means I got to wake up super early. So if I recorded as late as I usually do, I'd have about 3 hours of sleep before going to walk Bethpage, which would make for a tough round. So I don't know what my record is quite yet from last week. I know heading into Monday Night Football, I was sitting at 8-6. So I need to win one of these two games in order to finish profitable for the week. I can win both of them and go 10-6. I can win one of them, go 9-7. If I lose both, we're 8-8, and it's going to be another small loss of a week. As of right now, the Titans are covering, though. I have not watched that game since Seahawks Lions has begun. I could not change my channel quicker, and it's turning out to be the smart choice because, I mean, just watching the ESPN play-by-play here might go down as the worst game of the season. 9-3 right now with 11 minutes and 40 seconds left. I got a bad line on the Titans. I got them like -1 or -1.5. I don't have it in front of me. But then I guess the Dolphins announced that their quarterback was going to be, what does he go by now? Snoop Huntley? Formerly the artist formerly known as Tyler Huntley. And that changed the line like 3 points in the Dolphins' favor. But still, I mean, even with a bad line, the Titans are, as of now, covering. But I mean, if the Dolphins score one touchdown based on how this game is going, that could be it. And the Seahawks is certainly not going well because they're down 14. Do get the ball back at the start of the second half. My point is, I got my bets locked in for all of Week 5, except for the two games involving the Titans and the Seahawks, because I think both the Dolphins and the Seahawks, because the Titans and the Lions are on bye next week. So we are entering the bye week portion of the 2024 season. 4 teams on bye next week: the Lions, Chargers, Eagles, and Titans. That means that we have 14 games to bet on instead of the usual 16. That will be the case for the next handful of weeks. But I do have bets locked in for 12 of the 14 games. I will I'll go through 7 of them, take a break as you usually do, and I'll leave the games involving the teams playing tonight for the second half of the show. I'll talk Survivor as usual. I will quickly say, I know on last week's episode I said I was going to go Cardinals with Survivor. Later in the week I did chicken out, and I went with the obvious pick. I went with the 49ers, and I am glad I did that, because if I stuck with the Cardinals, then I'd be eliminated. If you followed that Cardinals pick, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have tweeted out that I switched things up to the 49ers. But I'm still alive in Joe Ostrowski's pool with $75,000 goes to the winner, and we're down to 64 people, I believe. So getting down to the nitty-gritty for that, I will break down my Survivor pick at the end of the show, as well as my teaser and my 5 best bets. I can't even recap my best bets or my teaser last week because they both, from this past week, because they both involved the Seahawks. So we'll have to wait and see to find out how this game ends up. But let's not wait any further. It's the Week 5 edition of the Road to 272. I'm hoping we took a step in the right direction in Week 4. 8-6 heading into Monday Night Football. It'd be tough. We went 0-2 tonight and then ended up losing some money. But at the very least, I think we're going to take a step back in the right direction towards being in the green. Let's keep it going in Week 5. It is the Week 5 edition of the Road to 272 Bets. Let's go.
I'm not a state. I'm a monster.
No, Lisa. The only monster here is the gambling monster that has enslaved your mother. I call him Gamblor, and it's time to snatch your mother from his neon claws.
All right, here we go. It is halftime of the Seahawks and Lions, 21-17. So because it's halftime on my TV here that I have in the background, I've switched it over to Titans-Dolphins, unfortunately, for the next 15 minutes. Oh boy, this game looks terrible. 9-6, Titans are still winning. I need one of these bets to come through. But let's, actually, before I get into my Week 5 picks, I encourage everyone to please subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube. Rate and review this podcast no matter where you listen to it. That helps me out quite a bit. Let's get into Thursday Night Football. I got my Falcons hoodie on. It is the final Falcons primetime game until I think Week 15, I think it is. We play the Raiders on, I think, Monday Night Football. So, casual football fans or, anyone who just watches primetime football, I guess, getting treated to a lot of Falcons so far this season. Third primetime game of the year. It is an NFC South battle on Thursday Night Football. The Falcons are taking on the Buccaneers. The winner will be in first place in the division. Big one for the Falcons. Falcons just squeaked out a win against the Saints this past week. Did not think Younghoe Koo had a 58-yard field goal in him. He did. And thankfully we ended up beating the Aints. But this game makes me nervous. And the Falcons are a little bit... I don't really know what to think of this team, to be honest. I am going to take the Falcons. I ended up settling on the Falcons, 1.5-point home favorites on Thursday Night Football. But I ended up just kind of drowning in the numbers, and then I just took a step back and just decided that I think the Falcons are the better team. So I'm going to back them as 1.5-point home favorites. The reason why, you look at the simple stats, you look at, my favorite stat, net yards per play, which is yards per play subtracted by opponent yards per play. They're third in the NFL right now in net yards per play, plus 0.9. Seahawks are in first, so that could change pending the outcome of this Lions game. But as of right now, heading into Monday Night Football, Falcons third in the NFL in net yards per play, plus 0.9. That would lead me to believe that they're a little bit better than their 2-2 record. But this is around the time of the season when I start looking at advanced metrics, because I think we have a little bit of enough of a sample size to start doing that. And when I say advanced metrics, I mean things like EPA per play, DVOA, success rate, those numbers that all the stats nerds love, and the Falcons do not rank well in any of them. Let's just look, for example, and I'm talking offensively right now. Offensively, EPA per play, they're 21st. Success rate, they are 14th. So, I mean, not great, but not terrible. DVOA, they're in the bottom half of the NFL. And I think the simple stat I can find, which explains their low ranking in those, EPA and success play rankings, is they have been terrible this season, both on third down and in the red zone. Heading into week 5, they ranked 29th in the NFL in third down conversion rate. They convert only 26.32% of their third down tries, and they're not getting touchdowns when they get the ball to the red zone. 28th in red zone touchdown scoring percentage, scoring a touchdown on only 40% of red zone trips. If you know how EPA and success rate works, it makes sense that important third downs and red zone plays aren't being successful. That's going to hurt your ranking in those advanced metrics. So what's going on with the Falcons? They move the ball when it's not really important to move the ball, and then in key situations, they're not getting first downs, they're not getting touchdowns. What do we do with a team like that? I think how I would look at the Falcons right now is a team that's talented and skilled, but something's going on, whether it's coaching, whether it's play calling, whether it's a lack of chemistry with the quarterback playing on a new team and a new offensive system, whether it's rust with the quarterback who, coming off an Achilles injury last year. One of those factors is contributing to not getting the job done on third down, not running the ball super effectively, especially with Bijan. Algier has actually been the better runner so far this season, not scoring touchdowns. I think I would rather have a team ranking high in things like yards per play and opponent yards per play and low in the advanced metrics than the other way around. Because I think the advanced metrics will get better as the season progresses. If the base is there, if the team at the end of the day is moving the ball and preventing the other team from doing so at a pretty good clip, the other things are going to come. I might be wrong about that, and this is, like I said, I started drowning in stats when looking at this game. Now, the Buccaneers are pretty straightforward. No matter what stat you want to look at, simple metric, advanced metric, net yards per play, EPA, almost every single thing and every single metric you want to look at for the Buccaneers, they rank somewhere between 10 and 20. They're an average team. Their offense is probably above average. Their defense is probably below average. So then I didn't know what to do. After looking at all that, and I was looking at the numbers, and I spent more time looking at this game in terms of the stats and numbers than any other game this week. I didn't love either side. I didn't love the over. I didn't love the under. So then I was like, what am I going to do in this game? So I decided to take a step back. We're still only 4 weeks into the season. And this is the reason why I bet Falcons last week and won. By the way, I hope you got the line at -1.5 like I did. If you waited till, kickoff and got to the 2.5, you lost, unfortunately. Last week I took the Falcons at home to the Saints because I said preseason, people were evaluating the Falcons as the best team in the NFC South. They had the best odds to win the division. Look-ahead lines had them as the better team. They had the highest win total. But yet, for some reason, last week, based on them being 1.5-point favorites at home, that'd be the Saints would be a slight favorite in a neutral site, which seems weird after, last week, 3 weeks of a sample size. You're going to flip and make the Saints the better team. We have the exact same situation. It's the same line this week. Falcons are at home once again. Preseason, the Buccaneers were the third best team by odds makers, by the market, by the public. I think, or maybe the Buccaneers were second to win the NFC South. Regardless, the Saints and Buccaneers are right next to each other. And it's the same situation. Preseason, the market and me specifically evaluated the Falcons as the best team in the division. I don't think we've seen enough this year to then change that opinion, because if they're 1.5-point home favorites, that means that on a neutral site, the Buccaneers will be a slight favorite, meaning the Buccaneers are valued as the better team. I don't agree with that. So even though the stats are confusing, the Falcons are extremely confusing, I'm just going to take a step back and be like, listen, preseason, the Falcons were the better team. I don't think enough has changed the past 4 weeks for me to change that opinion. I'll take Falcons -1.5 and hope for the best. I don't know. After drowning in all these stats, it did make sense, because while watching the Falcons play, that's kind of the feeling I had. The eye test watching the Falcons was like, they're moving the ball, like it seems like they're having success, but it's just not translating. Like something's just not clicking, and it makes sense. It's third down and red zone. I'm hoping with better play calling, we got a new offensive coordinator, and not only a new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson's never been an offensive coordinator before. So I still think the offense is only going to get better as the season goes on. I'll take a -1.5 against the Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football. Very nervous for that game. Moving on to Sunday, we got the first London game of the year. It is the Jets. It is the Vikings playing 9:30 a.m. Eastern. So it'll be an early morning viewing for us. It is in London. Theme of the week, I think, is going to be sell high, buy low. It's something I'm doing across several different games, including this one. I did say last week that I was in on the Vikings. I do like the Vikings. I do think they're a legitimately good team. I have them penciled in the playoffs, whether it's to win the division or as a wildcard team. I think the Vikings are a playoff team. Laying 2.5 points in London, and weird things happen in London, I'm not quite ready to do, specifically because of the matchup the Jets defense presents to this Vikings offense, especially Sam Darnold. So what I'm going to do is sell high on the Vikings, buy low on the Jets after last week. I will take the Jets +2.5, -105. Not brave enough to take their money line. I think this is going to be a close game. I would much rather be on the side getting 2.5 points than the side giving 2.5 points. By the way, I missed the touchdown. The Titans scored. They're up 16-6, so that's good. Let's squeeze out a victory here in at least one of these two games. Jets offense did not look good last week, but they were going up against the Broncos defense. I bet the Broncos, and it was for exactly that reason. That game kind of turned out, I thought it was going to be a little bit higher scoring. But it kind of turned out how I expected it to. Now, the Vikings defense has been good as well, but so has the Jets defense. And I think the Jets defense is going to prove to be an issue for Sam Darnold and the Vikings. I think this is the best defense that the Vikings have faced so far this season, especially the one that can cause Sam Darnold the most issues. For example, the Jets are second in the NFL in sack percentage. They get a sack on 11.48% of their opponent dropbacks, and the Vikings have allowed Darnold to get sacked on 9.4% of his dropbacks, the sixth most amongst all quarterbacks. So this is a pass rush that's going to be able to get to Sam Darnold, and I think that's when Darnold has some issues. If he has all day to throw back there, he can, do what he can do what he's done so far this season. But he's going to run into some issues when he faces teams that are really going to put some pressure on him. The Jets defense also third in opponent yards per play overall, second in opponent yards per pass attempt. They give up just 4.7 yards per throw. I think the Vikings will be smart to rely on Aaron Jones and just run the football in this game, which they may do, but that's not enough for me to want to lay 2.5 points on them in London. If this was in Minnesota, yes, I probably would bet the Vikings, but this is a neutral site game. I mean, Vikings are technically the home team, but it's a London game. And similar to Aaron Rodgers, as I feel about Kirk Cousins, I do think Aaron Rodgers will get a little bit better as the season goes on. I'm still not super high on him. I think this will be a close game. I'm going to take the Jets +2.5, minus 105. We have the Panthers and the Bears in this next one. I bet the Bears to win and cover the 3-point spread against the Rams this past week. I will admit that was a game I got a little bit of luck on, I think. Although the Bears defense stepped up. But I thought the Bears were going to win and cover because I thought their offense was going to be able to roll over the Rams defense. And they did not. Which is a huge cause for concern for the Bears right now. I predicted the Bears were going to come out of the season slow offensively, which they did. I thought last week was going to be their coming out party against the Rams defense because the Rams defense might be the worst defense in the NFL. But they did not move the ball at all. So if you can't move the ball against the Rams defense, I don't have faith in you to move the ball against anyone. Straight up. I don't have faith in the Bears to move the ball against any team in the NFL. Even though the Panthers defense is not the best in the world, they've been better than the Rams so far. Do the Bears win this game? Sure, maybe. 4-point spread, higher than the magic number of 3. Not good enough for me. I will take the points with the Panthers in this one. +4, the Panthers offense. I mean, you don't need to hear it from me. This team is a completely different team now with Andy Dalton. By the way, the Bears offense right now heading into week 5, 31st in yards per play, 26th in both EPA per play and success rate. So it's not just the eye test. It's both the simple stats and the advanced metrics. Bears offense stinks. Panthers offense has, even with 2 games with Bryce Young, they've been that much better in the past 2 weeks with Andy Dalton that they're already a better offense than the Bears in every single metric. And with 2 of those 4 games having Bryce Young as their quarterback, not a good sign. So I think the Panthers are the better offense. Bears certainly the better defense, but not good enough for me to want to lay 4 points on Chicago here. I'll take the points with the Carolina Panthers +4. You want to talk about a buy low team. I bought low. I invested in this team last week, and they did not win. They did cover the spread for me, though, and I'm going to keep buying some stock because they are an 0-4 team that I don't think deserves to be 0-4. And I've seen people already talking. How are the Jacksonville Jaguars at 0-4, 2.5-point favorites to the Colts, who are 2-2 and just beat the undefeated Steelers? I'll tell you why. Because I'm taking the Jaguars -2.5. I'm laying the points with Jacksonville. If that was your thought, when you looked at the lines and saw the Jaguars were 2.5-point favorites and you said, that doesn't make any sense, let me ask you this. If the Jaguars were 2-2 right now, would it still not make sense? Because there's a pretty strong argument to be made. They should have, if not should have, at least could have won 3 of the 4 games they lost. Now, they got destroyed by the Bills. They were never going to win that game. Dolphins in week 1, they had a walk-in touchdown. I still forget what happened. Did ETN fumble on the way into the end zone? Something happened that prevented them from going up 2 scores, and then Tyreek Hill took it 70 yards on the next play for the Dolphins. ETN walks in the end zone in that game. Against the Browns in week 2, if the Jaguars score late in the game when they get to the red zone, they probably win that game against the Browns. And then this past week against the Texans, if they, in the red zone, went for it on 4th down, didn't get it. If they scored a touchdown there, do they beat the Texans? Now, let's say they even just win 2 of those 3 games that they could have won. They're 2-2 right now. Do you look at this game and you think Jaguars shouldn't be 2.5-point favorites? Because I can guarantee you, odds makers and sharp bettors don't bet based on records. They bet based on numbers. And this Jaguars team is better than 0-4. And I don't think the Colts are necessarily better than, or I don't think they're as good as 2-2. Yes, they beat the Steelers last week. Their secondary still has a lot of issues. And the key to beating the Colts is stopping the run. And that's actually the biggest strength of the Jaguars. Is the Jaguars' run defense is pretty good. Keep teams as 3.9 yards per carry, 7th best mark in the NFL. So if they can slow down the run of the Colts, force Anthony Richardson to throw, if it is Anthony Richardson, if it's Joe Flacco, I feel less confident about this bet if it's Joe Flacco, because I think Anthony Richardson sucks. I don't know how much you watched of that game against the Steelers. There was times, I know they were winning when he left the game, but there was times he was missing wide open receivers. And his completion percentage kind of proves that. So I hope Anthony Richardson gets back in the lineup. If Joe Flacco plays, I'm going to be concerned. But I like the Jaguars regardless. I think they can take advantage of below average Colts secondary. I think they can move the ball. I think they can do enough to get the job done here. There's a reason they're 2.5-point favorites despite being 0-4. All right, moving on. The Bills and the Texans. which might be the best game of the week. It's going to be a measuring stick for both teams. You know, my overall thoughts with the AFC, it seems like so far this year, it seems like the NFC is kind of wide open. It seems like the AFC are going to be the usual suspects. It's going to be the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, and maybe the Texans. And if the Texans win this game, it's going to be a big step in the right direction for them. But with that being said, I will take the Titans. Just got another field goal up 19-6. So that bet's looking good with the third quarter about to end. I will take the Bills on the money line plus 102. This is basically a pick 'em. Shop around for this line for sure. There are some books that have it as a pick 'em minus 110. I got plus money at FanDuel, had a plus 102. That was the best odds of the New York regulated book. So I will take the Bills plus 102 as a slight underdog. Now I do have another underdog. I did say last week, this week I would take two underdogs. I know the people love a big upset pick. Unfortunately, a lot of close lines this week, so I'm not betting a big upset, so there's two. I got 2 plus money plays. I'll take some shots at some bigger underdogs later in the season, but there's not very many big underdogs this week. One of them that I am taking is the Bills. The Texans, I know they're 3-1, but I mean, haven't actually been that impressive. No one's really talking about it because they are 3-1, and if at the end of the day, if you win games, people are going to question you. But, I mean, they beat the Colts, the Bears, and the Jaguars. They didn't cover against the Colts, didn't cover against the Jaguars. Maybe either covered or pushed, depending on where you bet the line against the Bears. And those are 3, not so great teams. And they didn't separate from any of them. Probably argument to be made they should have lost against the Jaguars this past week. The one good team they faced was the Vikings, and they got blown out the water. So they're 3-1. Haven't looked impressive against bad teams, and their stats haven't been great either. I don't have it actually in front of me. I didn't put it in my notes where they rank, but let me just quickly bring it up here. Let's say EPA per play offensively. 22nd in the NFL right now in EPA per play. Oh, sorry, that's success rate. 22nd success rate. EPA 16th. That's basically where they rank. Net yards per play, they're 10th, so a little bit better, in some simple statistics, but also based on their schedule, they should be ranking way higher than they currently are. The Bills, meanwhile, they actually fell down to, how much did they get? They fell down to 11th in net yards per play. What were their yards per play against? Their yards per play against the Ravens must have been tough, because they were like top 3 last week. Yeah, they got outgained against the Ravens, 7.9 yards per play to 4.1 yards per play. Yeah, that'll drop you down the net yards per play rankings. That Ravens game, outlier game for the Bills. It was one of those games where things went wrong from the jump and they just couldn't bounce back. That happens to teams sometimes. Even good teams, that happens to. Also, stylistically, the Ravens are a bit of a nightmare matchup for the Bills because they can stop the run. You know what the Texans can't do? Stop the run. Texans have not done a good job of stopping the run this season. They're 25th in the NFL in opponent yards per play, giving up 4.7 yards per rush. That means the Bills are going to be able to run the ball. And if they can run the ball and establish the run, the Bills are going to be tough to stop. So I know this game is in Houston, but I'm actually kind of selling a little bit of stock on the Texans right now. I think they're an extremely good young team. I think a lot of them, and I'm talking coaching, I'm talking quarterback, I'm talking the young pieces on defense, I'm talking, some of the young wide receivers. They still need to develop a little bit. They're all very skilled, very talented. Texans are going to be a good team for years to come. I just don't think they're quite there just quite yet. I'm going to take the Bills, the more experienced team, Josh Allen, the more experienced quarterback, the more experienced head coach. I'm going to take the Bills as a very slight underdog plus 102. Then we got the Ravens and the Bengals. This one is pretty straightforward in my opinion. The opening line was Ravens -1. I wish I bet it then, but I've got to follow the rule and not bet it till Monday night when I'm ready to record. I'll take Ravens -2.5. I mean, I continue to fade the Bengals one way or the other, and it continues to work for me. The Bengals are offensively have actually been very good this year. But if you want to hang with the elite teams like the Ravens of the NFL, you can't only be good on one side of the football, especially when the point spread's below 3. Now, if this point spread was like 5, then I'd probably take the Bengals because I would say their offense is good enough to keep it within a field goal. Or at least close to a field goal. But at 2.5, anything under the magic number of 3, I ought to take the Ravens. The Ravens, I know they're 2-2, but the Ravens, I mean, after tonight, they're going to be first in net yards per play. Right now, the Seahawks are, but they're getting outgained by the Lions. So unless things turn around in the second half, the Ravens will be first in net yards per play. Yards per play offensively, they've been impossible to slow down. Third in EPA per play, sixth in success rate. Their defense can stop the run. Still some issues. Let's see what their opponent yards per pass attempt. See if that's gotten any better. Because they got off to a bad start. Yeah, they're improving. Only allowed the Bills to average 5 yards through the air. 6.2 yards per pass attempt over their last 3. So they have been improving a little bit in the secondary, which is big for them because they got off to a tough start to the year in the secondary. The Bengals I think are going to be able to move the ball. Listen, even if you value the Bengals offense as much as the Ravens, and that's a wash, we're talking about one of the best defenses in the NFL against arguably the worst. To me, that's a no-brainer. If the offenses are a wash and you just take into account top 5 defense, bottom 5 defense, that's worth 3 points. Even with it being in Cincinnati. So this game's a little bit of a no-brainer for me. Now, if you're one of those people that like to be contrarian and think that, when odds seem fishy, you got to bet the opposite way, or if you believe in trap lines, which I don't, this would be the trap line of the week. Then I'd bet Bengals because this line makes no sense to me. I probably have the Ravens as like 4-point favorites. 4. On the road in Cincinnati, I think I'd set them as 4-point favorites right now. Which I know it's 1.5 points. That's kind of big to begin with. Part of that is I don't value home field advantage as much as I think other bettors do, sharp bettors do. I find myself betting on a lot of road teams a lot. But yeah, I can't get to 2.5 with the Ravens. One more game here, and then I'll take a break, watch the rest of these games and handicap, the games involving the teams from tonight, and then I'll come back for the second half of the picks. But one more, we got Browns and Commanders. This is a picture-perfect spot. the Seahawks scored a touchdown. This is a picture. I got to put this back in the Seahawks game. This is a picture-perfect spot for me of buy low and sell high. I talk about it every single year when recording this podcast. I personally, it's a strategy I use. Maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe it's not even a smart strategy. But I treat betting on the NFL like the stock market. A couple of reasons why. Because I don't do it really with a lot of other sports. I think the biggest reason why I do it in the NFL is because people have short memories. And the fact there's only a team only plays once a week. 4 games ago feels like a lifetime ago. Whereas 4 games in other sports, like you wouldn't when, looking at the numbers to bet an NBA game, you wouldn't look at the past 4 games and forget everything that happened before that. But people do in the NFL because it's only once a week. So like 4 games ago was a month ago. But it feels like it was a long time ago. So because of that, because of some I think recency bias is stronger in the NFL than some other sports. I think there's some good opportunities to buy low and sell high on teams. And I don't think there's a team that is in a better sell high spot right now than the Washington Commanders, who admittedly I did bet against them last week. I took the Cardinals. It's probably my worst bet of the week last week. But everyone's glucking the Commanders right now. And yes, has Jaden Daniels looked impressive? Yes. Am I jealous of Commanders fans? Yes. Advanced numbers, Washington leads the NFL in EPA per play, leads the NFL in success rate. Net yards per play, the simple statistics is actually not as good, minus 0.1, but that is because of their defense. But let me remind you who the Commanders have played so far. The Commanders opened up against the season against the Buccaneers. They lost. They then beat the Giants. They beat the Bengals while giving up 33 points and beat the Cardinals. What is the common thing amongst all 4 of those teams? Bad defenses. The best defense they faced was the Buccaneers, which is a below average defense. The Cardinals and Bengals might be the 2 worst defenses in the NFL, and the Giants aren't much better. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on Jaden Daniels and this Commanders offense. I think they play the Ravens next week. I will be betting against the Commanders this week. I will be betting against the Commanders next week. I will take the Browns +3 in this one. A Browns team, which to be fair, I am on record last week saying as long as Deshaun Watson is a starting quarterback, I won't be betting on them. I'm not betting on, well, There's one aspect of their offense I'm betting on. But this is a game because this is going to be by far the toughest defense that Jaden Daniels and the Commanders have faced, and it might be a little bit of a rude awakening for them. Now, the thing I do like about the Browns offense, now this is not confirmed, but I think Nick Chubb is back this week. I know he's back to practicing this week. It hasn't been announced if he's going to play or not. But if Nick Chubb can return, that's going to give the Browns offense a nice dynamic. They're going to be able to lean on the run game. They're going to stop asking Deshaun Watson to do too much because Deshaun Watson right now, let me look at the Browns passing play numbers. They have thrown the ball on passing play percentage. The Browns have thrown the ball on 65.49% of plays, second highest pass play rate in the NFL. That's crazy to do that with Deshaun Watson. So now if Nick Chubb's back, I assume Kevin Stefanski is going to want to run the ball more, which will only help them. That's going to help their pass game. That's going to help everything. Nick Chubb could be a difference maker for this Browns offense. Let's not forget Nick Chubb he averaged 6.1 yards per carry before getting hurt last season. He averages over 5 yards per carry in his career. As long as he's healthy, he's going to evolve and change the Browns offense. And if the Browns offense can move the ball against any team in the NFL, it's going to be the Commanders defense, who stinks. I just talked about how good the Commanders defense is on the the offense is on the advanced metrics. Their defense, dead last in opponent EPA per play, 31st, so second last in opponent success rate. They are an interesting case. Still early in the season, but they're looking like they might be the best offense and worst defense, which is always a fun team to watch. I will take the 3 points with the Cleveland Browns. I think their offense is in for a little bit of a rude awakening. Like I said, and I can't repeat this enough, the Browns defense is going to be by far the best defense the Commanders have faced so far this season. The best defense they've faced is a below average Bucs defense. They haven't even faced a top 50% defense yet this season. Not saying he's going to have a bad game, but it's going to be a little bit. The Lions just ran the Philly special and scored a touchdown on it. Well, there goes my I think my Seahawks bet just died. I think my Seahawks bet just died on a Philly special. Ooh. Not good. Let me rewatch this. Fake running back. I think that's basically the Philly special, right? I just lost a bet on the Philly special. Ouch. All right. I'll take the Browns +3. I think I've said all I needed to say about that game. And the Lions, every extra point the Lions have kicked tonight has barely been inside the uprights. I'll take the Browns +3. And that does it. I'm going to watch the end of these games now. I hope the Titans hold on to this lead. If they do, we'll be profitable this week. If they do and the Seahawks can make this a game, we can go 10-6, hopefully at least 9-7. I'll be back with my picks. The other 7 games, including the ones involving the Seahawks and Dolphins. Is it the Titans or Dolphins? The Dolphins play the Patriots. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back. Monday Night Football is in the books. Thankfully, we did get one win. 1-1 in the Monday Night Football games, with the Titans kind of cruising to a comfortable win there at the end. The Seahawks, Lions, thank God we had that game to watch. Even though I lost my bet on the Seahawks. Tonight might have been... The Titans and Dolphins might be the worst game all season, or one of the worst. I guess probably not worse than the Jets Broncos this past week, but one of the worst games of the season, and the Seahawks Lions was one of the best. So thank God we had Seattle and Detroit to watch. I did go 1-1 with my picks though, which is kind of what I needed. 2-0 might have been a little bit selfish tonight, but 1-1 does get us to a winning record now that all the bets are in the books here. So week 4, I went 9-7 plus 1.21 units. That inches me back towards the green for the season. So for the season, I'm sitting at 31, 32, and 1 push for minus 2.17 units. Listen, it is a marathon, not a sprint, and we took a step back in the right direction, which is all I can ask for in any given week. If we, stack those bricks on top of each other, we'll be in the profit before we know it. So profitable week 4. Let's try to have a profitable week 5. I've already given you 7 of my 14 plays. It is time to get through the other 7. I've handicapped the Dolphins and Patriots, as well as the Seahawks and Giants after the odds reopened after those games. Oh, and I guess I can recap the rest of last week too. So I went 2-3 on my best bets that I gave out last week. Hit Jaguars plus the points and Raiders plus 1.5 against the Browns. Lost on Cardinals, lost on Seahawks, and lost on the under between the Steelers and the Colts. That Seahawks loss also lost us the teaser leg, which I got Chiefs -2 versus Chargers. That leg hit, but Seahawks did not cover 10 against Lions. That last second little drive the Seahawks got, if they could have scored, that would have been nice. That would have cashed a teaser for us. It wasn't meant to be, though. So I'm back with another teaser in my best bets, of course, and my survivor play. I'll give all those out at the end, but we got 7 picks to get through before we get to that. I'm going to start with the Dolphins Patriots, because chronologically I think I'm already on to the late afternoon games, but I got to go back and get to the Dolphins Patriots game, which is a 1:00 game. And listen, I said at the start, the theme this week is going to be sell high, buy low. And I said earlier, I think the Commanders might be the best example of a sell high team this week. I don't know of another team that is a better example of a buy low team than the Miami Dolphins, who just got destroyed by the Titans and looked absolutely abysmal in the process. So I'm going to take the Dolphins +1 against the Patriots. The look-ahead line, so before Monday Night Football kicked off, the Dolphins were 1.5-point favorites. So that the performance was so bad for Miami that the line shifted 2.5 points from the Dolphins towards the Patriots based on that performance. I don't necessarily agree with that when that happens, unless there's like a major injury that happens, and as far as I'm aware, there wasn't. I guess odds makers and bettors just don't have as much faith in Snoop Huntley as they did before the game against the Titans. But I personally have a lot more faith in Snoop Huntley, if that's who they go with, in his second game with the team against a Patriots defense, which, to be honest, I actually think the Titans defense might be better than the Patriots defense, but pretty close. But if they do decide to go with him, that's another week of practice that he's going to have under his belt, another week getting used to playing with, the guys on the Dolphins, another week getting used to the system. And we're talking about the Patriots here. The Patriots who, before the season started, everyone said was going to be the worst team in the NFL. They were the betting favorite to finish with the worst record. Looked decent through the first couple of weeks. People then got high on them. And people still, I don't think, are ready to accept that they are as bad as they are. Because now, statistically, they are the worst team. Net yards per play, at least. Dead last in the NFL through the first 4 weeks, net yards per play. -1.8. That is 0.6, more than half a yard worse in net yards per play than the next worst team. Their advanced numbers in terms of offensive EPA, 28th. Offensive success rate, they are 24th. EPA, or defensively, I wonder exactly how bad they're. Defensively, not much better. 25th in opponent EPA per play. 25th in opponent success rate. The Dolphins rank better in both of those areas defensively, certainly rank better in both those areas offensively, but at the end of the day, listen, I know the Dolphins look bad. I know it's tough to, put on a good performance without a solid quarterback, but they still have a very talented, a very skilled offensive roster. They still have Tyreek Hill. They still have Jalen Waddle. They still have Devon Achane. They have all these players who the Patriots would kill to have. Now, it's hard to get the ball in the hands of those players and set them up for success when you don't have a good quarterback. But if you just look at these two teams on paper, even without a competent quarterback, the Dolphins are still leagues above the Dolphins. The Dolphins are still leagues above the Patriots. And I am, I guess, not surprised, but I will be taking the 1 point with the Dolphins. Now, I am taking that 1 point. Instead of betting them, I think the sportsbook that had the line open for this game when I bet it was DraftKings. Yeah, you can either bet -102 on the money line or take a 1 point. I'll take the 1 point because they could lose by a point. They are just that bad. But listen, let's take a step back and look at how talented this roster is. They can beat the Patriots. They can beat the Patriots, who I still think are the worst team in the NFL. So I'll take Dolphins +1 and that one. Broncos and Raiders. The Broncos, 2 weeks in a row they won bets for me. This is a team that I think I value higher than I don't think there's another better, at least another sharp better. I'm not going to call myself a sharp better or a pro better, but I've listened to sharp bettors and pro bettors talk about the Broncos, and they are low on them. So I think it's safe to say I'm a much higher on them than they are. I bet them 2 weeks ago against the Buccaneers. I bet them this past week to cover against the Jets. I wish I would have taken them outright. But the reason why I like the Broncos, and this is my long-winded way of saying I'm betting on them again this week, is their defense. And it's why I bet on them last week against the Jets, and it's why I bet on them 2 weeks ago against the Buccaneers. They are an elite defense. They rank now, heading into week 5. They allow the fewest yards per play at 4.2, fourth in opponent EPA, and fourth in opponent success rate. Now, their offense is bad, but the thing is the Raiders' offense is bad too. These two teams, the Raiders and Broncos, are 27th and 29th in EPA. Raiders have an edge in yards per play. They're 20th in yards per play. Broncos are 29th. But for the most part, these two units are very similar. The defenses are not similar. The Broncos' defense is far superior to the Raiders. Also, the Raiders, they missed Devontae Adams. They missed Max Crosby. What is going on with those guys? I don't know. It was kind of weird because they were in all week and then all of a sudden they are out. Apparently, Max Crosby has an ankle issue, so he's questionable for this week. Devontae Adams is questionable. Some people say they're taking Devontae Adams out and they're going to trade him to the Jets. Who knows? But I don't have faith in the Raiders this week against an elite Broncos defense that I think can carry them to victory for the second straight week. So I'll lay 2.5 points on the Broncos at home, minus 115. Cardinals and the 49ers, I am going to stick with the Cardinals. They did not cover for me or even come close to covering or winning last week against the Commanders. They're now 7.5 point underdogs against the 49ers. I will take the 7.5 points. Even though the 49ers did cover last week against the Patriots, there was plenty of points in that game. It didn't look like they're going to cover. Actually, New England was going down late in the game. New England scores, kicks an extra point. That's a 10-point game. It's either a push or that's a Patriots cover, depending on where you bet it. Now they are playing a much better team in Arizona. I think Arizona is much better than New England, at least better offensively. And I still have concerns about the 49ers defense. It's the reason why I bet on the Patriots last week. 19th in opponent yards per play, 18th in opponent success rate, 22nd in opponent yards per pass attempt, giving up 7 yards per throw. That should work in favor of the Cardinals. Now, I will say this might be the last time for a little bit that I bet on the Cardinals because Cardinals offense has not looked good the past 2 weeks. Looked good against the Bills week 1, looked good against the Rams in week 2, did not look good 2 weeks ago against the Lions, and didn't look good this past week against the Commanders, a Commanders team that has a very bad defense. So this is kind of going to be this is going to be kind of my last time giving the Cardinals a chance for a little while. I still do believe in their offense, though. I mean, and I've talked about this in the past, it's going to take a lot for me to lay a touchdown, more than a touchdown worth of points on any team in the NFL. There's just too much parity. There's too many weird things that can happen. I mean, I will lay that if I think it's justified, but the team that is getting over a touchdown worth of points better be pretty bad defensively and offensively. The Cardinals are too good offensively for me to lay 7.5 points against them. I will take Arizona with the 7.5 points in San Francisco. Moving on to the Seahawks and Giants game, I believe this line moved down 0.5 point. I believe the Seahawks were 6-point favorites before Monday Night Football against the Lions. That line has moved down. The only book I saw at, regulated New York book that I saw the line reopen at, was FanDuel, so I jumped on that line so I could lock that in and record. They are down to 5.5, but the juice is minus 120, and I am going to lay that with Seattle in this spot. Now, last week I bet on the Seahawks against the Lions because of their defense. The Lions defense, and I had the question if you listened to last week's episode, I didn't know if the Seahawks defense, because they were like first in almost every single metric, if that was just a case of Mike McDonald making the Seahawks an elite defensive team, or if it was just the competition they had faced, because they had faced like some of the worst offenses in the NFL up to that point. I think the Lions proved it was a little bit more of their competition. With that being said, the Seahawks were missing some guys on defense. I don't know if those guys are going to be back this week. That is the downside of placing my bets Monday night. I hope they are back, but at the end of the day, we're talking about a Giants team playing on the road in Seattle, opposite side of the country, with an offense and a defense that's not as bad as they were last year. I mean, I'll bet the Giants in some spots this season for sure, but they're 25th in net yards per play. They're in the bottom 10 in most advanced metrics, both offensively and defensively. The Seahawks defense, yeah, they might not be elite, but the Seahawks defense is very good. Their offense played extremely well on Monday night against the Lions. I expect their offense to play very well in this week as well. So I think this is just a little too tall of a task for the Giants on the road in Seattle against a team that is better than I think a lot of people expected heading into the season. I'm not ready to count out their defense yet. Like I said, banged up this week. Hopefully they get some of those guys back next week. I know Byron Murphy's one of them. Like there's I think 4 guys there missing this week, starters on defense. If they get them back, the Giants could be in trouble. So I'm going to lay the points with the Seattle Seahawks against the Giants. I'm going to bet the Packers minus 3.5 against the Rams for the same reason I've been betting against the Rams recently. They're banged up as far as I'm aware. There's no one that I know this is the first week that players that were on IR to start the year can come back. I haven't heard of the Rams returning any of their big guys, their star players. I know the receivers are still going to be out for sure. And the Packers are very good. The Packers let the game against the Vikings get away from them at the start. Then they stormed back. At the end of the day, Packers are 6th in the NFL in net yards per play at plus 0.8, I should say. And the Rams defense stinks. Even though the Rams defense looked better against the Bears than I expected, they're still last in opponent yards per play, 31st in opponent EPA per play, 30th in opponent success rate. Jordan Love and this Packers offense, I envision them torching the Rams defense. I think the only hope the Rams have is Matt Stafford gets something going. But it's clear the Rams offense is not the same as it was when they have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. I think part of the reason why the Rams were able to get the ball moving against the 49ers a couple weeks ago, number one, I've talked about it, I don't think the 49ers defense is as good as a lot of people thought. But the Rams are in a situation where because they had no Puka and no Cooper, it was kind of tough to tell which receiver was going to be their primary receiver. And now that we have, after the game against the 49ers and then last week, like now we know like which receivers to focus in on. It's Tutu Atwell. So now that like question mark of what do the Rams do offensively, now the question is answered. They're going to throw the ball to Tutu Atwell. They're going to run with Kyren Williams a ton. And that's not going to be enough, I don't think, to hang with the Packers. I believe I have this down as one of my best bets of the week. Yeah, it is. Because I think the Packers might crush the Rams. This might be like the Rams are screwed kind of week. And like I said, Packers, I think, deserve to beat the Eagles in week 1. Looked very good even without Jordan Love. And then Jordan Love had a rough first half coming back after injury, but now he's going to have a big start, I think, especially against this Rams secondary. I'll take the Packers minus 3.5. Sunday Night Football, a game I don't really care about. I guess NFL historians care about it, and I guess the rest of America cares about it because it's the 2 most popular teams in the country, Cowboys and Steelers. I know I get Steelers fans in my mentions and in my DMs. They're mad at me, but I just, favorites to the Cowboys? No, I gotta take the Cowboys to win. Plus 120 Cowboys to win. Now this is a little bit of an example, like the Cowboys statistically, like if you actually like go down the stats and the metrics in this game, I guess I can kind of see how the Steelers could be home favorites. But I just look at the Cowboys on paper, and I do think the Cowboys are going to turn things around. They're too talented. It's the same team as last year, and last year they were like a top 5 team in every metric. So like I just don't, maybe not, if not top 5, like 6, 7. So I just don't see why they can't figure things out a little bit. Now, I will say a big reason why I do like the Cowboys in this game, when you do want to talk about numbers, is the Cowboys' biggest issue is they can't run the football and they can't stop the run. While the Steelers can't run the football and they can stop the run, where their weakness is in their secondary a little bit. So if you can throw the ball really well, and if you don't have to worry about the and if you don't have to worry about, I guess, the fact that the Steelers can't run the football, then you're going to be fine. And that's what the Cowboys can do. The Cowboys can throw the football so they can attack the Steelers where they're the weakest, and the Steelers don't have the weapons, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to attack the Cowboys where the Cowboys are the weakest. If that makes any sense. And I know Justin Fields and the Steelers offense has been effective, but you can't convince me that an offense that's 21st in yards per play, 20th in EPA per play, and 21st in success rate is sustainable. It's just not. They won the first 3 weeks because their defense completely shut down their opponents. And week 4, they didn't completely shut down the Colts and they lost. This is not a team that has the ability to win offensive shootouts. And if the Colts can move the ball on the Steelers defense, the Cowboys can certainly move the ball on the Steelers defense. So I'm going to take the Cowboys on the money line on Sunday Night Football plus 120. Final game of the week, it is the Saints against the Chiefs, and I'm done with the Chiefs. I'm going to take the Saints. Saints plus 5.5 minus 110. Now, and I talked about this on Stacking the Box, but I'm kind of in a tricky spot with the Chiefs. I think my first edition of the fraud rankings are going to come out next week. If the Chiefs weren't the Chiefs, if they weren't the back-to-back Super Bowl defending champs, I would be calling the Chiefs frauds because they have not had if we just look at this team this season as a whole, like if you had an amnesia and the only thing you knew about the NFL, if you had every game on mute and you watched every game, you didn't know who Patrick Mahomes was, you didn't know they're the back defending champs, and you just watched the Chiefs 4 games a season, you'd be like, oh, this team stinks. This team should thank their lucky stars that they're 4-0. And I'm going to back that up with some metrics here. Net yards per play, they're 16th in the NFL at plus 0.1. You want to go advanced metrics? Let's go advanced metrics. Offensive EPA per play, they're 11th. Offensive success rate, they're actually second. That probably explains a lot of it. Defensively, opponent EPA per play, they are 13th. Opponent success rate, they are 23rd. The fact they're second in offensive success rate explains a lot. They're kind of like so far this season, they're kind of the exact opposite of the Falcons, the team I ranted about earlier this episode, where the Falcons can move the ball, but they just like in key situations when they need a first down, when they're in the red zone, they need to score a touchdown. The Falcons just don't do it. The Chiefs are opposite. They're actually not good at moving the ball up and down the field and preventing the other team from doing so, but I bet you they rank really high in third down rate. 11th third down conversion rate. That's the Patrick Mahomes factor right there. Success rate, that's the Patrick Mahomes factor. Okay, so maybe they don't stink. 4-0, though, you can't tell me they're playing like a 4-0 team. I mean, even if you they probably deserve to win that Chargers game, I guess, but like the other 3 wins, they could have easily lost. Also, Chiefs are not good at covering the spread. I know they win Super Bowls. I know they win games outright. But if I actually look at over the past 30 regular season games when the Chiefs have been set as the betting favorite, they are 14-14-2. So don't just bet the Chiefs to cover just because they're the Chiefs. I think that is a lesson that most people have learned by this point in time. Until they come out with a dominant win, and I'm convinced otherwise. I mean, and that, by the way, they also lost Rashee Rice for the season. No Hollywood Brown, no Rashee Rice, an old Travis Kelce. They have Xavier Worthy, who's kind of like a fast rookie. And then who else? Noah Gray, Juju Smith-Schuster. They had now with Rashee Rice out, they had a better receiving core last year, and they had a bad receiving core then. Until the Chiefs can show me that they can be a dominant football team in the regular season, I will be betting on the other team every time when the spread's more than a field goal. 5.5 on the Saints, so I think the Saints are a very good team. No, I'll take the Saints. I will say, I considered strongly on taking the Saints as my upset pick of the week, but here's the issue, is that we know what's going to happen. Right? We know what's going to happen. The Chiefs are probably not going to deserve to win the game, and then they're going to get a penalty called near the end of the game, or a fan's going to come down and tackle Derek Carr, and the ref will be like, no, that counts, or, who knows what's going to happen. Some weird things that's going to happen, and the Chiefs are going to win. So I'm not playing that game. Give me the points with the Saints, because the Chiefs will win by 2 points. Chiefs will win on a last-second 85-yard field goal that, the ball will be in the air, and, like an eagle's going to fly by and grab the ball and then fly through the uprights with the ball. And then they're going to count the field goal and they're going to win by a point. The Saints are going to be like the Saints are going to score a game-tying touchdown, and all they need to do is kick the extra point to win, and the extra point's going to get blocked and returned by the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to win based on a returned extra point. Something weird's going to happen. The Chiefs will find a way to win this game, so I'm not taking Saints money line. I ain't playing that game. I've seen that story too many times before. I'll take the Saints plus 5.5 instead. All right, quickly recap my picks, and I'll give you my best bets, my teaser, and some Survivor. So I got Falcons minus 1.5 on Thursday night. Jets plus 2.5 against the Vikings, minus 105. Dolphins plus 1 against the Patriots. Panthers plus 4 against the Bears. Jaguars minus 2.5, minus 114 against the Colts. Bills plus 102 on the money line against the Texans. Ravens minus 2.5 against the Bengals. Browns plus 3 against the Commanders. Broncos minus 2.5, minus 115 against the Raiders. Cardinals plus 7.5 against the 49ers. Seahawks minus 5.5, minus 120 against the Giants. Packers minus 3.5, minus 105 against the Rams. Cowboys plus 120 on the money line against the Steelers. And then Monday night, Saints plus 5.5 against the Chiefs. My best bets have been terrible. Actually, the best betting strategy, if you've been listening to this podcast throughout the season, is to just take my 5 best bets and then bet the opposite. I need to be in a pretty good spot. I don't think I've had a winning week with my best bets so far. And that's why I'd rather just bet on every game. My best bets this week are going to be Jets. Oh, by the way, my best bets are just going to be I'm going all in with 4 of my 5 best bets are selling on teams high, buying on teams low. I'm fully invested in that strategy this week. So because of that, my best bets are Jets to cover against the Vikings, selling high in the Vikings. Dolphins to cover against the Patriots, buying low in the Dolphins. Jaguars to cover against the Colts, buying low in the Jaguars. And Browns to cover against the Commanders, selling high in the Commanders. And then Packers against Rams, just because I just love that bet. So Jets, Dolphins, Jaguars, Browns, and Packers are my best bets for this week. My teaser play is I'm going to take the Jets from 2.5 up to 8.5 against the Vikings in London. I think the Jets defense is going to be good enough to keep this close. And that is crossing both the key numbers of 3 and 7. And then I'm going to take the Panthers from plus 4 against the Bears up to plus 10. I don't think the Bears offense is good enough to win by double digits. That will cross the key number of 7 and get to the secondary key number of 10. So Jets and Panthers in a 6-point teaser is my teaser of the week. Now let's talk Survivor. Last week, I did, to be fair, say on last week's episode, take either the 49ers or the Cardinals against the Commanders. The last thing I said before ending the podcast was that, you know what, I'm going to take the Cardinals. I'm going to get cute and take the Cardinals. Well, I record on Monday night. I then have a week to think about my Survivor pick, and I don't have enough integrity to potentially switch off, because that's what I did. I got nervous. I felt like I was big braining the Survivor pick, so I did switch from Cardinals to 49ers, and thank God I did, because if I stuck with the Cardinals, I'd be out. Now that means if you did listen to me and you did take the Cardinals and you lost, I apologize. I hope you were in the pool that I'm still in. Let's actually quickly talk about my pool left. The Bacon Bets podcast pool, which I lost 2 weeks ago. How do I find it here? This is my pool. My pool should not be that hard to find. I run the pool. My channel. Live. Here we go. We started with 161 entries. We are down to 8. So we lost. 2 people were on the Jets last week, so they lost, and 1 person didn't submit a pick. Listen, you can win $3,622.50 if you win this pool. You're down to the last 11, and you didn't submit a pick. Come on. Tough look. Tough look. But we were down to 8, so I'm going to shout out the people who are left. McCunn 11, Legatron, Lefty, Cody Hess, Sideline Covenant, The Tingler, Coleman, 2828 and Dosh. Dosh is my buddy Josh Daniels. Shout out to you. Shout out to him. He has a 1 in 8 chance to win, what did I say, $3,500, $3,600? So yeah, down to the final 8. That'll be interesting to see who comes out on top there. Lefty, you should think, is Lucky Stars because he took the Texans, and the Texans almost lost. Everyone else was on the 49ers or the Cowboys. Now to the pool that I still have an entry in, Joe Ostrowski's pool. We had 80 people heading into last week. We were down to 64. The winner gets $73,530. Hold on, let me try that again. That'd be nice. That would pay for my wedding next summer, and I'd be able to throw a nice bachelor party. So far in that pool, I took the Saints, the Texans, the Jets, and then thank Gambler, I switched to the 49ers last week. Because that was an easy win, and the Cardinals got their bums kicked. This week is a tough week. Everyone's talking about how tough Survivor is this week. I think there's one play to make. Now, a couple of reasons why I like this play. You could go 49ers. I can't because I went 49ers last week. If you have the Seattle Seahawks, I think that's the way to go. Because if you go just based on betting odds and you can't take the 49ers, which I can't, I assume most people probably can't at this point if you're still alive. The next biggest favorite is the Seahawks. Seahawks and the Chiefs are both 5.5. I don't trust the Chiefs. I don't think they're good enough to be 5.5 point favorites. I do trust the Seahawks. And the added benefit for me being able to play the Seahawks is that in this pool that I'm in, Joe Ostrowski's pool with 63 people left, only 36 of the 63 can take the Seahawks. So only slightly over half the entries. So I'm going to guess probably half the entries will probably be on the Seahawks, maybe a little less than half. So that's going to force other entries to go somewhere else. Now, for the people who don't have the Seahawks, they probably have the 49ers. This week, I assume, is going to be if you have the Seahawks, you're going to take the Seahawks. If you have the 49ers, if you don't have the Seahawks, then you're going to take the 49ers if you have them. I wonder if there's anyone who doesn't have either. If you don't have either, you're in a tough spot. But I mean, who else are you going to go with? Not going to go Falcons, not going to go Vikings, not going to go Ravens, not going to go Texans, not going to go Jaguars. Commanders against the Browns, I'm not going to go that way. Bears against the Panthers, you could. It's a tight week. There's a lot of small spreads. So I think for my pool, it's pretty obvious Seahawks. Seahawks at home to the Giants. I know it's a short week for the Seahawks, but still, they got enough talent on both sides of the ball to beat the Giants. So I don't even think there's a second option for me. Taking one more look. I mean, if something crazy happens and the Seahawks announce everyone's out and they're starting all backups, I'll probably go. Oh. I don't even know who I'd go if I have to do that. Maybe Broncos at home to the Raiders. I think I'd go Broncos and hope their defense steps up. So I'm going Seahawks this week. Let's hope I can take one step closer to $73,000, which would be much needed right now for your boy. All right, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube. Rate and review this podcast wherever you listen to it. Gamble or bless. Best of luck with your picks next week. I'll be back Thursday morning with my player prop countdown. We had a big week with the player props last week, including cashing a big touchdown score. So if you like player props, keep an eye out for that. That'll be out Thursday morning. I'll talk to you then. Bye.